The NFC South is shaping up to look much different. Absolutely multiple coaching hires, head coaching hires, Atlanta and Carolina. Atlanta, Raheem Morris, former DC for the Rams, and Dave Canales goes to Carolina, former OC with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So 2 new head coaches, and the Raheem Morris is very surprising because Atlanta was linked to Bill Belichick this whole time. And when someone's linked to arguably the greatest coach in history, you assume they're going to go that direction, especially when you had 2 interviews. Atlanta actually interviewed 14 different candidates. That's crazy. Up until an hour before Raheem Morris was announced, the Atlanta Falcons Twitter posted, "We have completed an interview with Bobby Slowick," with the Houston Texans OC, for the head coaching position. So they were interviewing people up until the announcement. I mean, they had an exhaustive search. Interviewed Belichick, Slowick, Ben Johnson, Joe Brady, Raheem Morris, and got their guy. Morris has ties to Atlanta, obviously. It is a different direction. I think people assume that Atlanta needs help offensively. Arthur Smith was an offensive guy, and they have a lot of question marks on the offense with all these weapons that they don't know how to use. But we'll get into that later in the video. As far as Canales, he has one job. His job is to get the most out of Bryce Young. So he is known for working with Russell Wilson, Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield, arguably being instrumental in their best seasons. So he's a bit of a quarterback whisperer. So that's the whole deal here. I'm pretty sure, someone double check me, I think the hiring process was pretty quick over there. I think he interviewed maybe 24 hours later, 48 hours later, he gets the job. He also has ties to Carolina, specifically to GM. So him and the GM worked together before. So this was one of those kind of, I think it was going to happen before the interview. But Canales will be judged on Bryce Young. He'll be judged on, can he work miracles with Bryce Young? Can he get something out of this first overall pick? Can he transform Bryce the same way that Tepper thinks that he transformed Russell Wilson, Geno Smith, and Baker Mayfield? That's a tough ask too, because you're asking a guy to basically be an offensive coordinator, to basically be a quarterback coach. Oh, but also you're the head coach of the team. Oh, but also you need to be as invested in the defense. You got to be as invested in logistics and motivation and man management, all that stuff. So that is a really tough job. It's a really tough job. It's a really tough ask, especially if you factor in how Tepper seems to be as an owner.
The NFC South is shaping up to look much different next year with all the moves happening in the coaching ranks within the division. I'm Nick Underhill, and you're watching The Dot, presented by Matt Bowers Auto Group. The Carolina Panthers made an interesting move today by hiring Dave Canales as their next head coach. Canales served as the offensive coordinator in Tampa Bay, where he helped revitalize Baker Mayfield's career. And prior to that, he got Geno Smith back.
Yeah, he was a quarterback coach in Seattle. He was not the OC during those seasons for Geno or Russell.
Back on track in Seattle. So that is good news for Bryce Young. He's getting a quarterback whisperer, and quite possibly the most effective one in the NFL right now. So that could lead to some rapid improvement in Carolina if Canales has the same type of success there that he's had in his other stops.
Well, I certainly hope so. I mean, it's these kind of hires I think are questionable. Because like I said, you're bringing him in to do a job, a very obvious job. But then you're also telling him like, oh, hey, by the way, we want you to make Bryce Young work. We want you to kind of develop this first overall pick. We want you to get him going. That's your main focus. But also, you mind kind of dictating what we do on special teams and defense too? So, I mean, he has his work cut out for him. He's got to, and I'm going to say the same thing about Raheem Morris, but this is where the importance of coordinators are. This is where, and we've been preaching this, where if you are an offensive-minded guy, or if you are a quarterback whisperer, or you're a defensive guy, and you're a master of one specific thing, one specific part of the game, that's okay. That's fine. You don't have to pretend to be a head coach. You don't have to pretend to have kind of control over every facet. But that just ramps up the importance of filling out your staff. Look at Houston. DeMeco Ryans. People look at DeMeco Ryans before he comes to Houston. DC and San Francisco. He is a defensive guy, played defense in his career. People assume he's going to be a coach you hire to try and kind of get a really good defense. But what have we talked about with Houston all year long? Yeah, their defense is way better. But we've talked about C.J. Stroud. We've talked about their offense. We talked about their wide receiver group. That's what we're talking about. That's not DeMeco Ryans. I'm sure DeMeco Ryans' man management and his coaching style helped that, and the culture. But that's Bobby Slowick, right? That's the coordinator. That's how important it is in today's day and age to get those coordinators. I feel like right now more than ever, coaches are kind of siloed, where 20 years ago, all you heard about was head coaches. Coordinators are relatively like you never really heard anything about them. You know, if the offense was bad, if the defense was bad, if the special teams was bad, if the quarterback was bad, if the draft was bad, all of that was going on to the head coach. All of that, all of the eyes, all the fingers were getting pointed at the head coach. Now everything is so siloed to where a really great defensive coordinator gets his due, a really great offensive coordinator gets his due, a head coach kind of can focus on one side of the ball versus the other side of the ball. So the staff is so important. And these two hires, hugely important. Raheem Morris, defensive guy, did a great job with the Rams, a young, inexperienced defense in Los Angeles. Raheem Morris gets them playing at a high level. He comes over to Atlanta. He's a defensive guy. He's going to boost the defense. He's going to boost the culture, all that stuff. But he has to make sure he lands the correct offensive coordinator, because he's got a quarterback question. He's got Bijan Robinson. He's got Drake London. He's got Kyle Pitts. What is that? Three first-round picks invested into the offense and a big question mark at quarterback. And Raheem Morris is not the guy to kind of make that work. So now the onus is on him, word of the day, is on him to go find that OC. Because he has to know, I need the OC to succeed here. Just like Canales knows, okay, I need to fill the room with a good DC. I need to fill the room with a good special teams coach. I need to do all that so I can focus on the main reason I'm here, to fix Bryce Young.
Also, moving on, the Atlanta Falcons still are in their search for their head coach. It sounds like the heat around Bill Belichick's name is backing off a little bit as he and Arthur Blank.
Okay, I didn't realize this was recorded before the Raheem Morris news broke. So we'll talk about Belichick. So this is interesting for Belichick because this basically freezes him out of the league. Ben Johnson, from what I'm hearing, this is just my sources, okay, unnamed sources. My sources are saying Ben Johnson is guaranteed to be the head coach of the Washington Commanders, the Washington football team, as I refer to them as. That was such a better name. Washington football team is so sweet. That's an awesome name. We got to get that back. So much better than Commanders. So Ben Johnson goes there. There really isn't a spot for Belichick. How crazy is that? That Bill Belichick is available. He could be available. He is available. Basically a free agent. Or I guess literally a free agent. And no one is interested in him. I mean, it's wild. If Tom Brady was a free agent, if Tom Brady was like, I want to play, teams would be lining up to have him play. But what I think the issue is, and I think this was the issue in Atlanta, Belichick wants player personnel control. He wants to be a GM. And a lot of these places don't want that. A lot of places don't want to give up that kind of control. Atlanta specifically. Atlanta, and I'm pulling these names out of my brain here, so hopefully all these names are right. I'm pretty sure in Atlanta, I know his last name is McKay. He's the GM. I think their ownership situation is pretty like split down the middle, where the front office and Arthur Blank have pretty much the same amount of power. So if you bring in Bill Belichick and he wants to be a pseudo quasi GM, what does that do for someone like McKay, who is the GM, right? All of a sudden now you've got three chefs in the kitchen. So I think that's why Atlanta moved off Belichick. And it looks like a lot of teams might be doing that. A lot of teams are getting younger. A lot of teams are taking chances on guys. I mean, again, Bill Belichick is out there, and Carolina said, I don't think they interviewed Bill Belichick, but Belichick's out there, and Carolina said, we're not even interviewing. We're not interested. No thanks. So it might just be a stylistic thing to where these coaches or these GMs or owners don't want to give up control to Belichick, or it also might be the idea that he's 72 years old. And these organizations would rather go with a young guy, an innovative guy, someone, a fresh idea. And maybe this, like the time of retread coaches are over everywhere except New Orleans. because it seems like the only team that wants to retread a coach is the Saints. Everywhere else, everyone's like, no, let's take a chance on a coordinator. Let's take a chance on a guy who's never been a coach before. Let's take a chance on this guy. Let's take a chance on a guy who's been an OC for 6 months. Let's do that. And then over here in New Orleans, you've got maybe John Gruden. Oh, maybe Sullivan. Oh, maybe we can get Vince Lombardi out of the deep freezer. Maybe he can coach. Like, you might as well just go get Mike Ditka. Like at this point with the Saints. So it seems like everyone has decided to get younger. It seemed like, I remember a couple of years ago, the coaching carousel was just like Ron Rivera gets hired here, and it was just like, tired old coaches just kind of getting. It was like the Mike McCarthy, Ron Rivera, like those kind of guys just getting put in different places. And so I'm glad to see fresh faces. I'm glad to see new candidates and new ideas. And will they all be successful? No, obviously not. No, they certainly will not be. But it's good to get a new influx of names and ideas and schemes and all that.
They're trying to find the middle ground to where things could work. But at this point, they have not yet found that. And the Saints continue their search for an offensive coordinator. They're interviewing Clint Kubiak, Brian.
Oh, how about that? That snuck up behind me. How about Ronald Curry? Y'all see Big Ron sneak up behind me? Look at this.
They're interviewing Clint Kubiak, Brian Greasy, and Mike Sullivan from the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Now,
Sullivan's the biggest wild card out of all of these names so far.
What the hell? I feel like I'm in a scary movie. Oh my God. Look at this. I mean, we're just hanging out. Who's doing the animations? This is all brand new. I mean, do these guys ever slow down over at New Orleans football? Goodness. I mean, new studio. They watered the hell out of this plant, got this plant growing, and now they got these fancy animations and transitions, and I mean, what unbelievable! They're doing it all over there. But I mean, look
they're
at
interviewing
we got
Clint Kubiak, Brian Greasy, and Mike Sullivan from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now Sullivan's the biggest wild card out of all of these names.
What you doing over there, Mike? Man, dude snuck up on me, slipped up. Let's look at these names. All right, current candidates: Zach Robinson, my pick, my guy. Clint Kubiak, okay, don't hate it. Brian Greasy. My issue with Greasy is that he's been coaching for a year. He's been. I mean, I understand. The guy knows the game. I understand all that, but the idea that let him coach for a year and then let him be the offensive coordinator in the biggest offseason in Saints in the last 20 years. It's just questionable. Curry talked about this yesterday. Optics awful. The idea or the notion that word of the day times two. The notion that we could have had Ronald Curry be the OC this year on basically a free trial, a free run, just let him rip without any of the pressures of the official announcement, just him kind of getting used to it, seeing how he does to then make a decision if we want to make him the full-time OC. The fact that we had that opportunity and we just passed on it makes me sick to my stomach. It makes me want to puke all over my shoes. Mike Sullivan and Gerard Johnson. This Mike Sullivan situation is so ridiculous. I'm telling y'all right now. I told people in the comments for the last 24 hours, I will come unglued if Mike Sullivan is who we get. Just like I said, everyone across the league is getting young. They're getting innovative. They're evolving. They're getting new names and fresh ideas, and they're building off of the Shanahan tree or the McVay tree or however. The whole tree thing is very confusing because there's so many trees that intersect. And then we go find this cat, Mike Sullivan, scrub, Pittsburgh Steelers quarterbacks coach. Oh, sweet! You see how everyone else is like Rams passing game coordinator. Ooh, okay, I can understand. The Rams passing game is pretty sweet. Sean McVay is the man. Clint Kubiak, Brian Greasy, San Francisco. Ooh, their offense is pretty insane. It would be nice to get someone there. Gerard Johnson, quarterbacks coach for the Texans. Wow, C.J. Stroud was developed really well. Wow. Mike Sullivan, Steelers quarterback coach. Wait a minute, the Steelers quarterbacks suck. Wait a second. Why would we want him? The Steelers quarterback play was some of the worst quarterback play in the league. Kenny Pickett has regressed. Their offense is anemic. Word of the day times three. Their offense is terrible. Why would we want this guy? Ooh, good news. He developed Eli Manning. What? You're talking about 20 years ago? Oh, also he has ties to Derek Carr. God, like, look, I want to make Derek Carr comfortable. Okay, pause. I want to make him comfortable as much as the next guy. Pause. But we don't need to like, at some point, we got to back away from the whole, like, bringing in anyone with a tie to Derek Carr. Like, we can't create the Derek Carr tree where everyone else is trying to get people connected to Sean McVay and Mike Shanahan and Kyle Shanahan and all these people. And we're trying to get people connected to the Carr family, the Carr tree. You know? So, I mean, the Sullivan thing is just horrific. Horrific. It really, really would be. On here, I would rank them Zach Robinson. I'd probably rank them Zach Robinson, Gerard Johnson, Clint Kubiak, Brian Greasy, Ronald Curry, and Mike Sullivan.
So far, because the rest of the candidates have had ties to Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan, whereas Sullivan is just kind of his own guy. So that is a little bit of a curveball. Mickey Loomis said that
I mean, what could they possibly be celebrating right here? Like a 4-yard pass? What could this scrub, and I mean, you talk about a couple of scrubs. What could Mason Rudolph and Mike Sullivan be celebrating right here? Honestly, this might have been like after a handoff. There's no possible way they're celebrating any kind of passing success because the Steelers were so bad.
Team would overturn every single stone to try to find the best possible options. Some obvious, some not obvious. I think Sullivan falls in the not so obvious category.
He falls mostly in the category of horrific mistake. He falls in the category of terrible decision. He falls in the category of what the hell. He falls in the category of what are we doing? Why would we do that? You are ruining the franchise. He falls in the category of, wow, season tickets were pretty cheap this year. That's what he falls in the category of. All right? I mean, look, I said don't rush, okay? I said don't rush Mickey. I said let's take our time here. Let's get the right guy. I didn't mean wait until all the good candidates are hired and then go interview Mike Sullivan. That's not what I meant. I meant just, bring it. I meant do what Atlanta did, basically. Atlanta, you got to give them this. They get Raheem Morris. He's their guy because they interviewed 14 candidates, a couple of which we know really, really good candidates. Bobby Slowick, hell of a candidate. Joe Brady, hell of a candidate. Ben Johnson, hell of a candidate. Bill Belichick, hell of a candidate. So they did their due diligence. They did their job. They didn't interview Mike Sullivan. Okay? They didn't waste their time interviewing these kind of folk. They interviewed strong candidates. So whether you like Raheem Morris or not, as a coach, you have to at least say, well, I mean, they took it, they did what they had to do, interview-wise. That's what I want Loomis to do. Do what you got to do. Bring in Joe Brady. Bring in Ben Johnson. Bring in, I'm just naming names. Bring in whoever. I don't care. Bring in Chip Kelly if you want to bring in Chip Kelly. Whatever. Bring in some people. But also bring in the good guys. Zach Robinson, Gerard Johnson. Some of the people who already were hired. Could have interviewed them earlier on. And make a decision, Mickey. The dominoes are starting to fall. Coaches are starting to get hired. There's only a few left. I want to make a decision, my guy.
But that search continues to carry on with the Senior Bowl looming a week away.
Good stuff. Good video. Good stuff. Great graphics. Whoever's doing, again, big shout out to whoever's doing the graphics for New Orleans.football. Good stuff as always. Wow. All right, good stuff. Thank you very much for watching. Ladies and gentlemen, go down in the comments below. Thoughts on everything. Morris, Canales, all these young fellows right here on this list. Thank you for watching. Baby, baby, baby. We are doing it like no one else can do it. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.